The night sky above the colony world was heavy with shadows. A massive alien warship floated in silence, its metal skin shining like dark glass under the pale moon. The people below looked up with fear, for whenever such ships arrived, sorrow always followed. Inside the warship, slaves carried heavy crates, each marked with strange glowing symbols. These crates were not simple gifts. They carried lives. They carried despair. The aliens called them offerings, and tonight one crate was sent down to the human colony by mistake. The crate landed with a heavy crash on the docking bay of Captain Elias Ward's outpost. The soldiers around looked at the strange box, confused. It was not their supply order. It was not their request. The alien seal burned red across the lid, and the air around it felt cold. Elias stepped forward, his boots striking the floor with calm authority. He was a tall man, scarred by old battles, his eyes sharp with discipline. He ordered the men to open the crate, though they hesitated. With trembling hands, they unlocked the alien seal. The lid opened and silence spread like fire. Inside was not a weapon, not food, not treasure. Inside was a woman chained, fragile, her eyes wide with terror. Her skin held the silver tone of alien bloodlines, and her hair fell like strands of night. She looked up at the humans, her lips trembling as if she wanted to scream but had no voice left. The soldiers stepped back in fear. Some whispered that she was cursed, others that she was dangerous. But Elias only stared, his heart tightening with something he did not expect. Pity. This was not a gift. This was a prisoner. The soldiers asked what they should do. Should they send her back? Should they report? But Elias gave no order yet. He only studied her face. The woman fell to her knees inside the crate, chains clinking. Against the metal floor, her whisper was weak like a dying flame. "Please, do not return me," she said, her voice trembling. The humans froze, hearing words in their own tongue. Though her lips carried the accent of another world, Elias knelt down, meeting her eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, calm but firm. She lowered, her head, shame filling her face. "I am Kaylin, widow of the fallen," she said. The words were heavy, though simple, and then she added, "If they know you kept me, they will kill us both." The soldiers exchanged nervous glances. They knew the alien overlords did not forgive mistakes. If they demanded the gift's return and Elias refused, it could bring death to all of them. But Elias did not move, his eyes still locked on the fragile figure before him. This was not just an alien, this was a soul broken yet alive. He ordered his men to take her out of the crate. Some refused, fear in their voices, so he stepped forward himself and gently lifted her. She was light, too light, her body weak from hunger and captivity. She flinched at his touch, expecting cruelty, but his grip was steady, not harsh. They brought her inside the outpost. Whispers spread through the halls. The humans stared with a mix of fear and curiosity. No one had ever seen such a being up close. She walked with chains dragging behind her, head bowed. Every step she took was heavy with despair. Elias gave the order to remove her chains. The soldiers hesitated but obeyed. The sound of chains falling to the floor echoed in the silent hall. Kaylin rubbed her wrists, her eyes wide as if she could not believe what had happened. She looked at Elias, confused, frightened, but also searching for something, hope. "Why do you free me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elias did not answer at once. Instead, he studied the chains on the floor, the marks on her skin, the way her shoulders trembled. Finally, he spoke. "Because you are not a gift," he said. "You are a person." Kaylin's eyes filled with tears. No one had spoken to her like that since her husband's death. She shook her head, whispering again, "You do not understand. They will come for me. They will not forgive this mistake." Elias only looked at her with a quiet strength. "Then let them come," he said. Those words filled the air with tension. Every soldier in the room felt it. The weight of a choice that could cost them their lives. Outside, the alien warship still hovered in silence, Its lights flashed across the night sky like the eyes of a predator searching for prey. The wrong delivery had been made, but the mistake was not yet known. Kaylin sat quietly in the corner of the room, clutching her knees. Elias stood by the window, watching the alien ship above. His jaw was set, his mind steady. He knew that by keeping her, he had crossed a line that could never be undone. The night grew colder. The soldiers whispered in fear. Kaylin whispered prayers under her breath. And Elias, silent and unshaken, prepared for what was coming. For the gift that was never meant for him had now become his greatest choice. And the shadow of war was already moving closer. The night after Kaylin arrived was heavy with silence. The outpost felt colder, the air tight with fear. Every soldier walked with nervous steps, eyes shifting toward the room where she rested. They had seen her fragile body, her silver skin, her strange beauty. But what troubled them more was her presence. Because she was not supposed to be here, Captain Elias Ward sat alone in his quarters. The chain that once held Kaylin lay on the table before him. He studied the sharp metal links, touched the scars they had left on her wrists. His mind burned with questions. Why was she sent? And why had she begged not to be returned? At dawn, Elias went to her. She was sitting quietly, in the corner, knees pulled close, her eyes unfocused. When he entered, she flinched as if expecting another chain to strike. But Elias only brought food and water. She looked at the plate, hesitant, then slowly reached for it. Every bite was cautious, every sip careful, like she did not believe. The kindness was real. Tell me, Elias said softly, his voice steady but curious. Who are you really, and why do they send you as a gift? Kaylin's eyes lifted slowly, her lips trembling. I told you I am Kaylin, she whispered. Widow of the fallen. My husband was a warrior, a hero of my people. Her voice cracked as the memory touched her heart. They killed him after the war, and then they took me. For them, widows are not wives anymore. We are trophies, property, living gifts for their lords. Elias's jaw tightened. The cruelty in her words echoed inside him like fire. Property, he repeated with quiet anger. Kaylin lowered her head, ashamed. Yes, they bind us in chains, send us to their generals, their commanders, sometimes to allies, as if we are things, not souls. She paused, tears filling her silver eyes. But you should have returned me, she whispered. Why did you not? Elias leaned closer, his gaze sharp. Because I do not return people like boxes, he said. You are not a gift, Kaylin. You are alive, and that means something. For a moment, Kaylin stared at him, as if she could not understand the meaning of his words. No one had spoken to her like that before, not since the day her husband had died. Her hands shook as she whispered again, You do not understand. Keeping me is death for you, for your crew, for everyone here. Before Elias could answer, an alarm rang across the outpost. The soldiers rushed into the hall, fear on their faces. An alien patrol ship was approaching, scanning the area. They were looking for the missing crate, for the missing widow. The men looked at their captain, unsure what he would do. Elias turned to Kaylin, his eyes calm but burning with decision. You will stay hidden here, he said. If they search, you must not speak. You must not move. Kaylin grabbed his arm with trembling fingers. If they find me, they will not only kill you, they will take me and make me suffer worse than before. Her words carried a terror so sharp it froze the room. But Elias gently freed his arm from her grip. They will not find you, he said, with a promise in his tone that felt like steel. When the alien patrol entered the outpost, tension cut through the halls like a blade. The commander, tall and cruel, stepped forward with black armor shining. His voice was harsh as he demanded, A crate was delivered here by error. Return it at once. Elias stood firm, his hands behind his back, his face calm. There was no crate, he said, steady and clear. The commander narrowed his eyes. Scanning the humans, searching for lies, his soldiers began to search the halls, their boots heavy, their weapons sharp. Inside a hidden chamber, Kaylin crouched in silence, her body shaking. She pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from crying. Every sound of footsteps outside made her heart pound harder. She thought of chains, of darkness, of pain that might return if they found her. And for the first time she prayed, not for herself, but for the human who had chosen to protect her. Elias walked with the alien commander, showing him empty rooms. Every step he took was measured. Every word he spoke steady. The soldiers whispered among themselves, their fear rising. But Elias did not break, his eyes never leaving the commander. Finally, the aliens left, unsatisfied but without proof. Their ship lifted back into the sky, but the threat remained. When the halls grew quiet again, Kaylin emerged, from hiding, her legs weak. She looked at Elias, her lips trembling with both relief and fear. "You lied for me," she whispered, almost unable to believe it. Elias met her gaze without hesitation. "I told you," he said. "You are not a gift, you are a person." Kaylin lowered her head, her silver hair falling across her face. Her heart beat fast, but not only from fear. Something new stirred. Inside her, something she had not felt since the day her husband died. Trust. It frightened her as much as it comforted her. She looked at Elias again and whispered, "Then I must tell you everything. I must tell you my secret." Elias leaned closer, his eyes sharp with curiosity. "What secret?" he asked. Kaylin's voice trembled as she spoke. "The widows they send. We are not only prisoners. We carry something hidden, something they fear, something they cannot control." Her words hung in the air, heavy, mysterious, dangerous. Elias felt the weight of her confession. For this widow was not only a victim, she was a key to something far greater, and the war around them had only just begun. The alien patrol ship had left, but silence did not bring peace. Inside the outpost, every soldier felt the weight of fear pressing down. They knew the aliens would return, stronger, searching harder, and now they looked at their captain with doubt. Had he doomed them all by hiding the widow? Captain Elias Ward stood tall in the command hall. His men whispered, some angry, some afraid. A few shouted that she must be returned, that one alien life was not worth human survival. But Elias raised his hand, his voice firm and unshaken. "She is not a crate, she is not property, and she will not be given back." The hall fell into uneasy silence, his words cutting like steel. Kaylin stood at the edge of the room, her silver eyes lowered. She felt their stares, the fear, the anger, the blame. Part of her wanted to beg Elias to let her go, to free them of the burden. But another part, deep inside, felt something strange. A spark of safety, a spark of defiance that she had not known for years. One soldier stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "Captain, this is madness," he said. "If the aliens find her, they will kill us, burn the outpost, slaughter everyone." Elias's eyes locked on him, steady and sharp. "Then they will have to go through me first," he replied. The soldier fell silent, though his fists still shook with anger. Later, Elias went to Kaylin's chamber. She sat on the floor, her hands wrapped around her knees. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "You should not risk your men for me," she whispered. Elias shook his head, his voice low but firm. "It is not about risk. It is about what is, right?" She looked at him, confusion mixed with sorrow. "Do humans always fight like this, even when the chance of losing is great?" Elias gave a small, tired smile. "Especially then," he said. "That is what makes us human." That night, shadows moved inside the outpost. Not all the soldiers agreed with Elias. A small group gathered in secret, whispering their plan. They would signal the aliens, reveal the widow's hiding place, and save themselves to them. Betrayal was survival, and survival was all that mattered. Kaylin could not sleep. Her dreams were filled with chains, with her husband's face, with fire and screams. She woke with a start and found Elias standing near the window, his eyes fixed on the sky. The alien warship still hovered in the distance, watching, waiting. They will come again, Kaelin whispered, her voice trembling. Yes, Elias answered, his voice steady. And when they do, we will not bow. Morning brought more tension. The alien commander returned with a larger force, their ships casting shadows across the outpost. This time he did not ask politely. His voice thundered as he demanded, "Return the widow now, or face the wrath of the Empire." Elias stepped forward, his soldiers tense behind him. "There is no widow here," Elias said firmly. His lie was sharp, his voice unbending. The commander narrowed his eyes, suspicion burning. He ordered his troops to search again. Kaelin hid once more, her heart pounding. She knew every search brought her closer to discovery. Her hands trembled as she whispered to herself, "If they find me, I will not let them take me alive." Her eyes burned with new strength, the strength born from Elias's defiance. The aliens stormed through the halls, shoving soldiers aside, opening doors, smashing locks. But Elias followed them, his presence heavy, his voice sharp with authority. "This is human ground," he warned. "You have no right to tear through our home like thieves." The commander sneered, his voice filled with contempt. "Humans have no home, only what we allow." For a moment the hall grew tense, hands on weapons, breaths held. Then, finally, the aliens pulled back, their search once again empty. But the commander's final words chilled the air. "You cannot hide her forever, human," he hissed. "When we return, we will burn this place to ash." The soldiers watched as the aliens left. Some looked relieved, but others stared at Elias with blame. They saw war in their future, and they did not want it. Yet Elias stood unshaken, his voice calm as he said, "War may come, but it will not be on their terms. It will be on ours." Kaelin came to him later, her voice breaking. "Why do you do this, Elias? Why defy them? Why risk everything?" Elias looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because every empire begins its fall when one person refuses to bow," he said. "You may think you are only one widow, Kaelin, but in truth, you are more than that. You are the spark they fear." Her heart raced at his words. She had been chained, broken, treated as nothing. But here, in this human outpost, one man looked at her and saw not weakness but strength, and for the first time in years, Kaelin felt something stir deep inside her, hope. Outside, the alien fleet prepared. For its return inside, whispers of rebellion began to grow. Some humans cursed Elias for his defiance, but others secretly began to admire it. And in the shadows, the traitors prepared to act, ready to betray Kaelin and deliver her to the enemy. But for now, in that moment, Elias and Kaelin stood together, not as captain and prisoner, not as human and alien, but as two souls bound by defiance, and defiance once born could never be silenced. The outpost was no longer the same. Whispers filled the corridors, sharp and dangerous. Some soldiers stood with Elias, silent but loyal. Others spoke in secret, plotting, fearing, waiting for the moment to betray. And in the center of it all was Kaelin, the widow who was never meant to be here. She walked the halls with slow steps, her silver hair falling across her face. Every eye followed her, some with pity, some with hatred. To them she was not only a stranger, she was a reason for war. But to Elias she was something more, something he could not yet explain. One evening when the sky burned red with sunset, Elias found her standing by the window. She stared out at the alien fleet in the distance, her eyes heavy with sorrow. "You do not sleep," Elias said quietly, his voice calm. Kaelin shook her head, her voice soft. "In my dreams, they chain me again," she whispered. "I wake and still feel the weight of the iron on my wrists." Elias moved closer, his gaze steady. "You are free here," he said. "No one will touch you while I still breathe." Her eyes turned to him, searching for lies, but his face was firm, his words strong. For a moment she almost believed him. That night Kaelin told him of her people, of their customs, their cruel laws, their endless wars. She told him that widows were once honored, symbols of sacrifice. But after the empire rose, they became property, gifts, tokens of victory. Her husband had died on the battlefield, brave and proud, yet his death had chained her instead of freeing her. "Do you know what they fear most?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Elias leaned closer, listening. "They fear widows who escape, for if we are free, we remind others of their cruelty. We remind the people that chains can be broken." Her words lit a fire inside Elias. Now he understood why the aliens demanded her return. It was not just about property. It was about control. Days passed, and slowly, Kaylin changed. She walked with her head a little higher, her voice less fragile. The soldiers noticed too, some whispering that she had bewitched their captain. Others feared she was dangerous, a spark that could burn them all. But Elias did not waver. He gave her books to read, taught her human words she did not know. And in return, she shared alien knowledge, maps, codes, old traditions long buried. Together they built trust, quiet and unspoken. One night, as the storm raged outside, Kaylin found herself in the command hall with Elias. The thunder shook the walls, lightning flashing across the dark sky. She turned to him, her voice breaking. "You risk too much for me. Why do you do this?" Elias's eyes met hers, calm and steady. "Because no one deserves chains," he said simply. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the storm raging outside, the storm inside, both of them stronger still. But in the shadows, danger grew. A small group of soldiers, jealous and afraid, whispered together in secret. They had made contact with the aliens, promising to hand over the widow. All they wanted was safety, even if it meant betraying their captain, even if it meant blood. Kaylin sensed it. She noticed the way some men looked at her, the way they spoke less when she entered the room. Fear twisted inside her heart. "What if your men betray you?" she asked Elias one night, her voice low. Elias did not flinch. "Then they betray themselves," he said. "But I will not give you up, Kaylin, not to them, not to anyone." Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken such words to her, not since her husband's last promise before he fell. Her heart ached, torn between fear and something deeper. She lowered her eyes, whispering, "If you keep me, your life will never be safe again." Elias's reply was sharp, steady. "Safety is not life, Kaylin. Freedom is." The bond between them grew, not spoken in grand words, but in small acts. In the way Elias shielded her from the harsh stares of the men. In the way Kaylin whispered secrets of the alien empire that no book could tell. In the way their silences were no longer heavy but warm. But outside, the alien fleet waited, and inside, betrayal sharpened its blade. The traitors had set their plan, their signal ready. Soon the aliens would know exactly where to strike. Kaylin dreamed that night of fire and chains. She saw Elias standing against endless darkness, alone. She woke with a cry, her body shaking. Elias was there, steady as always. She looked at him, her voice weak but fierce. "If they come for me, promise me you will let me go." Elias shook his head, his words firm. "No, Kaylin, if they come, we fight together." Her eyes filled with tears. For years she had been treated as property, as nothing. But now, for the first time, someone saw her as an equal, as a person, worth fighting for, worth dying for. And though fear still lived in her heart, another feeling had begun to rise. Hope, yet hope was fragile. And as the night passed, the traitors sent their signal. The aliens received it, their ships turned toward the outpost. The storm outside ended, but a greater storm was coming. A storm of fire, betrayal, and blood. And in the center of it, the bond between Elias and Kaylin would be tested by loyalty, by war, and by the price of defiance. The night was calm, but the calm was a lie. Inside the outpost, shadows moved with secret purpose. A small group of soldiers, faces pale with fear and greed, gathered in silence. They had already sent the signal, a message hidden in static, a call to the alien fleet. By dawn, the aliens would know. By dawn, they would come. Kaylin woke with a heavy feeling in her chest. She felt it in the air, a strange stillness, a danger she could not name. Her eyes turned toward the corridor, where whispers vanished when she passed. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. She pressed her hand to the wall, steadying herself, whispering, "They will betray us." Captain Elias Ward sat in the command hall, his eyes on the glowing screens. He felt it too, though no proof yet showed itself. The men avoided his gaze, their loyalty cracking like thin glass. He knew trust was breaking. And when trust breaks, blood follows. He looked at the sky outside, dark and endless. Somewhere beyond, the alien fleet was already moving. That evening, Kaylin came to him, her voice shaking. "They know," she whispered. "Your men have told them. I can feel it. I have felt this before." Elias studied her face, the fear in her eyes mixed with certainty. He gave a slow nod. "I know," he said quietly, "and I am ready." The first strike came before midnight. The walls of the outpost trembled as fire rained from above. Alien ships pierced the night sky, their weapons burning through steel and stone. The soldiers ran to their posts, alarms blaring across the halls. Some fought bravely, others faltered, but the outpost was drowning in chaos. Kaylin stood in the command hall, her hands clenched. Every sound of thunder outside was a reminder of the chains she had once worn. But now she was not chained, now she was free. Her voice broke as she turned to Elias. "They are here for me. If you give me to them, they will leave." Elias shook, his head, his voice like iron. "Then let them come for both of us." The traitors revealed themselves in the chaos. They stormed the command hall, shouting, "Enough of this madness. She goes back to them tonight." Their weapons raised. Their eyes wild with fear, Elias stepped in front of Kaylin, his hand on his rifle. "You will not touch her," he said. The men hesitated, torn between their captain's command and their own terror. But greed for survival pushed them forward. The first shot rang out, sharp and loud. A soldier fell, blood staining the floor. The hall erupted in violence, friend against friend, loyalty against betrayal. Elias fought with fierce strength, his rifle steady, his strikes deadly. Kaylin ducked behind cover, her heart pounding. But when one traitor came too close, his blade raised high, she moved. Her hands, once weak, struck with sudden skill. The traitor fell, eyes wide with shock. She had never told Elias, but she knew how to fight. Her husband had taught her before he died. Now his lessons lived again in her hands. Elias turned, surprised by her speed, her strength. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and in that look, he saw not a prisoner, not a widow, but a warrior. They fought side by side as the hall filled with smoke and screams. The traitors were many, but Elias and Kaylin stood unbroken. And one by one the betrayers fell. When the hall finally grew quiet, the floor was littered with broken weapons and fallen men. Elias stood breathing hard, his uniform torn, blood running down his arm. Kaylin rushed to him, her hands trembling as she touched his wound. "You are hurt," she whispered. "It is nothing," Elias said, though his face was pale. "What matters is that you are safe." Kaylin's heart ached at his words. She wanted to argue, to tell him she was not worth his blood, but the truth burned too deep. She could not imagine life without him now. Her voice broke as she whispered, "You should have let me go, Elias. You should not bleed for me." He met her gaze, his eyes steady even in pain. "You are not a burden, Kaylin. You are a choice I made, and I will never regret it." Outside, the alien fleet pressed closer, their ships forming a wall of fire in the sky. The outpost shook. Again, as another wave of strikes fell, Elias raised his voice, calling his men to arms. "Hold the line," he shouted. "This is our ground, and no one takes it from us." Kaylin stood beside him, her silver eyes burning with new strength. No longer only a widow, no longer only a gift. She was something more now, something fierce, and as she picked up a fallen weapon, her voice was steady. "Then I will fight with you." Elias nodded, a small, grim smile on his face. "Together," he said. The word echoed through the hall, heavy, unbreakable, and in that moment, the bond between them was sealed not by silence, Not by kindness alone, but by blood, by fire, by battle. The betrayal had failed, but its price was heavy. The outpost was broken, the alien fleet was near, and the war that had begun with a single mistake now burned brighter than ever. Yet in the heart of the fire stood Elias and Kaelin side by side, unyielding. Not captain and captive, not human and alien, but two warriors bound by choice, and their defiance was only just beginning. The smoke from battle still clung to the outpost walls. The bodies of traitors lay silent, and the air carried the sharp smell of blood and fire. The men who survived stood shaken, some with guilt, some with pride. They had seen their captain defy the aliens. They had seen a widow fight beside him, and whispers began to rise, whispers that felt like fire spreading. Captain Elias Ward stood on the high platform, his arm wrapped in bloodied cloth. He looked at his soldiers, their faces pale but their eyes burning. "You saw what they tried to do," he said, his voice steady. "They wanted us to kneel, to return her like an object. But we are not objects. We are not slaves, and tonight we showed them that." The hall filled with silence, but not the silence of fear, the silence of thought. The spark had been lit. Kaelin stood behind him, her silver eyes heavy with both fear and wonder. She had been treated as nothing for so long, but now men looked at her with respect. Not all of them, not yet, but some. For the first time since her husband's death, she was not only a widow, she was something alive, something important. It frightened her, but it also gave her strength. Word spread beyond the outpost, faster than fire on dry fields. Other humans chained under alien rule heard the story. A captain who refused to return a widow, a man who dared to lie to the Empire's face. Whispers turned to hope, and hope turned to secret prayers. In taverns, in mines, in camps where humans worked as servants, people spoke his name, Elias Ward, the man who defied, but the aliens were not blind. The commander who had searched the outpost now stood aboard his warship, his fists clenched as he reported to his superiors. "The humans dare to resist. One man keeps the widow and his name spreads like poison." His superiors gave one answer only: "Crush them, burn the outpost and return the widow, dead or alive." Back in the outpost, Elias prepared for what was to come. He walked through the damaged halls, his boots heavy on broken steel. Kaelin followed him, her steps quiet but close. "You cannot fight them all," she whispered. Elias looked at her, his face calm. "No, not alone," he said. "But a spark does not burn alone, it spreads, and soon it becomes fire." Kaelin lowered her eyes, her heart torn. She wanted to believe him, but she knew the power of the Empire. "I have seen them crush whole cities," she whispered. "I have seen rebellions die before they even began." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "Then let them see something they have never seen before," he said. "Let them see humans who do not bow." That night more ships arrived, not alien but human, small vessels carrying miners, workers, even deserters from other posts. They had come quietly, secretly, answering the whisper of defiance. They brought old rifles, stolen tools, whatever weapons they could find. And when they saw Kaelin, standing free beside Elias, their eyes lit with something fierce. "If he defends her, then maybe we can defend ourselves too," one man said. Kaelin felt the weight of their stares. She had been hidden, shamed, silenced for so long. Now they looked at her as a sign, a symbol, a reason to rise. Her heart pounded, her voice trembled as she asked Elias, "Do they truly believe in me?" Elias shook his head gently. "No, Kaelin, they believe in what you represent. Freedom." Outside, the alien fleet grew larger, their ships circling like predators. Inside, humans who had never spoken to each other before now planned together. They drew maps on broken tables, whispered strategies in candlelight. Every eye turned to Elias for orders. But every heart was pulled by Kaelin's presence, for she was living proof that chains could be broken. As the days passed, Kaelin grew into her role. She no longer sat in corners with bowed head. She walked among the people, spoke softly but Firmly, she told them stories of her husband, of her people before the Empire's chains. She told them that fear could kill faster than any blade, and she told them that courage was not the absence of fear, but standing even when fear crushed you. The people listened, and their fear began to change into something else. One evening, Elias found her alone by the fire. Her eyes shone with the reflection of flames, her face tired but strong. "You have become their voice," Elias said, his tone quiet. Kaelin turned to him, her lips trembling with a small, unsure smile. "I was silent for so long I thought my voice was gone," she whispered. "But now, they listen. And it frightens me." Elias shook his head. "Do not fear it, Kaelin. Voices are stronger than guns, and yours will carry farther than mine." The night was broken by alarms. Alien scouts had entered the skies, their lights cutting through the dark. The people rushed to defend, rifles raised, weapons ready. Kaelin stood beside Elias, her voice steady. "They will not stop, they will come until we are all ashes." Elias nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we give them something they cannot burn. An idea. A rebellion." The battle that followed was fierce. Aliens stormed the gates, their weapons blazing, but the humans fought with desperate fire. Every man and woman who lifted a weapon thought of chains, of loss, of lives stolen. They fought not only for survival but for freedom. And though many fell, the line held. When dawn came, smoke covered the sky. The outpost was scarred but still. Standing, the aliens pulled back, not defeated but delayed. Elias stood covered in blood and dust, his voice hoarse as he called out, "We are still here, and we will not kneel." The survivors roared in answer, their voices carrying across the broken walls. Kaelin stood at his side, her face streaked with dirt, her eyes bright with tears. She had once been a widow chained in silence. Now she was a widow who had become a spark, and the spark had spread across the stars. Others would hear, others would rise. The rebellion had begun. The dawn after the battle was quiet, but it was not peace. Smoke still curled above the outpost, the walls broken, the ground stained with blood. The humans who survived stood together, tired but unbroken. They had fought the Empire and lived, and that itself was victory. But in the sky above, the enemy waited, stronger than before. The alien fleet had grown, ships black as stone stretching across the horizon. They did not retreat, they gathered. This was no patrol now. This was an army, and their purpose was clear: end the rebellion before it could spread, burn the outpost, crush the spark, destroy Elias and the widow. Captain Elias Ward stood on the command tower, his face pale with exhaustion. Kaelin stood beside him, her silver eyes steady, her body weak but her spirit fierce. They both knew the truth. This was the final stand, the choice that would decide not only their fate but the fate of every human who heard their story. The soldiers looked to Elias for orders, but their eyes also turned to Kaelin. She was no longer only the widow, no longer only a gift. She was the reason they stood, the reason they lifted weapons even with death above their heads. Elias saw this, and his voice carried through the hall. "They come to end us, but they will not. For today we are more than soldiers. We are the fire they fear, and we will burn bright enough to be seen across the stars." Kaelin stepped forward, her voice soft yet strong. "They fear us because we are free, because we refuse to bow," she said. "They will kill me if they can. But if I fall, you must not let them take my story. For it is not mine alone, it is yours, it is every voice that has been silenced, and tonight it must rise." Her words struck deep, and the men and women who heard them felt their fear change into steel. The alien fleet moved, fire cutting through the clouds. The ground shook as their weapons struck. Walls cracked, towers crumbled, screams filled the air. But the humans held their ground, their rifles blazing, their courage stronger than stone. Every shot was a cry of defiance, every wound a mark of sacrifice. Elias fought at the front, his rifle in hand, his commands sharp and clear. Kaelin fought beside him, her blade flashing, her movements fierce. She was no longer a prisoner, no longer chained. She was free, and in her freedom she was dangerous. The aliens saw her, and their rage grew, for every strike she made was an insult to their empire. But the enemy was endless, wave after wave crashing against the defenders. The outpost walls fell, the gates shattered. The humans were pushed back step by step until the command hall itself trembled. Elias's men shouted, some falling, others refusing to let go of their rifles even as they bled. It was a storm, and in the heart of it stood Elias. And Kaelin. At last, Kaelin turned to Elias, her voice breaking. "If I give myself to them, they may spare you. They may leave this place," she said. Elias's face hardened, his eyes burning with fire. "No," he said, his voice sharp as a blade. "You are not theirs to take. You are not a gift. You are not a bargain. You are mine only because you choose to be here. And I will not let them steal that choice." Tears filled her eyes, but behind them was strength. "Then you will die for me," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "No, Kaelin. I will live with you, or I will fall beside you, but I will never surrender you." The hall shook as alien soldiers stormed in. Black armor glinting, weapons raised, Elias and Kaelin stood side by side, the humans rallying around them. It was the final storm, and every heartbeat with the same fire. If they must die, they would die free. The battle raged until the walls burned, until smoke hid the sky. But in the chaos, something greater was born. Across the colonies, word spread of the stand at the outpost, of the captain who refused to kneel, of the widow who fought beside him. Even as fire consumed the halls, their story was carried, whispered by survivors, shouted by rebels, carried like a banner of hope. When the last alien ship pulled back, the outpost was in ruins. Many had fallen, but the humans had not been broken. They had lit a fire too bright to be hidden. The Empire could destroy walls, but they could not destroy the idea now alive in every heart. Elias stood in the rubble, his uniform torn, his body bloodied. Kaelin stood beside him, her face streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes burning with light. They looked at each other, and no words were needed. They had chosen, and their choice was defiance. Their choice was freedom, and so their legacy began. Not as a mistake of delivery, not as a prisoner and her captor, but as a story of two souls who refused chains, a story that spread across stars, a story that turned whispers into rebellion, and rebellion into war. The widow who was once a gift became a symbol, the captain who defied became a legend, and together they became the spark that would one day burn the Empire to ashes.